So yesterday, while recording a video, I spent 15 minutes debugging that I forgot to return a value in one of the functions. And so today I thought I would spend the time to implement the not all return paths return a value in my compiler. Not all control paths return a value in my compiler. And so for starters, I think the easiest is to implement some test files to see, well, to test said functionality. Okay, and so I'm just going to go in here in the root directory of the compiler and say like new, not all control paths, like forgetting to return a value, let's say. And how these tests all have to work is they have a main function, and one quirk of C is that the main function, if it doesn't return anything, actually returns 0. So we can't test this with a single function, but instead I'm going to use, well, main to call a function, and set function then forgets to return a value. So int main, and let's just call like maybe instar forgets to return a value, and then in main I return this function. Okay, then let's see what my compiler says about this. So HLC, forgetting to return a value, just completely fine with it. We see no warnings, no errors, because this is technically legal C. But if I do like MSVC, so CL, forgetting to return a value, it also compiles it, but it says forgets to return a value, must return a value, and it's a warning. Similarly, Clang, forgetting to return a value. Well, apparently I don't have Clang here, so whatever. We want this warning to be implemented. Okay. And I was looking through other compilers, how they implement it, but I actually couldn't find a simple compiler that implements this warning. So we're kind of on our own here, but I don't think it's going to be that hard. Essentially, I think how this is going to work is I want to track going through the block whether or not the block returns a value, and then from that I can infer on each statement whether does the block one above that returns a value. Anyways, so yeah, so for example, if we have an if here, if one, or like if, yeah, let's use some global, so the value isn't known. This should still complain, but this should not complain, because in either case it returns a value. Okay, but for these positives and negative tests, I'm going to wait to implement them and just go with the simplest one for now. Okay, so how do we start? Well, I think because this is like a statement level thing, the easiest is to look at pass statement. And so this is the pass statement function, which essentially gets a token and then checks on the token what kind of statement it is. It could be a semicolon, which is an empty statement, an if, a for, while, a do while, a break, a continue, a switch, a case, and so on. So there are going to be a lot of more difficult cases for this sort of check, I think. But yeah, for now, especially with switch cases and go-tos and all of this stuff, yeah. But I think I'll only care about the easy stuff for now, and then there will be some false positives, but yeah. Okay, and so how is this going to work then? Well, we need some sort of flag that tells us whether the block we're currently interested in returns a value. And so I think it's asked scope. And there are some scope flags. And I'm just going to put a scope flag returns a value. And I'm gonna put this to being 8. No. The scopes are passed in parse imperative scope. Right here. And, well, we assume we already have the scope, so it's passed in via the context. And then we iterate if there's a closed curly or we are at the end, which could happen if there's like a pass error before, we break. Otherwise we pass one statement. If it's an assignment, we do some stuff. Tracking how many times the declaration is written, apparently. Anyway, and then if an error occurred, we do some stuff. Namely, we try to get to the end of one statement, and then from there reset the should exit statement and try to pass the next statement to do more errors. Okay, but in the end, we are at the end of the scope and we passed everything. Then apparently iterate over the entire table to see if local variables are never used or never written, only read. And so here we are done with the scope. So here I'm going to check this flag. So if the scope flags and this is not set, I guess we only care about the function flag actually. So we should not do this here, but rather, because not every scope has to return, only the scope for the final function. So let's see where we are calling parse imperative scope. And here, parse the function. So this is what we care about. Here, parse our pop scope. We resolve all the go-tos. And if it's main, there's already a hack here, right? If the return type of the main function is type compatible with int, reaching the close curly that terminates the main function returns the value of 0. This is what I was talking about with main function being sort of special. Okay, and so I guess in this case we also set this flag then. So scope, which we apparently have, scope flags or equals scope flag returns a value. And then in the end, we check if the scope flags and this scope flag returns a value is not set. And I guess we should also check that it's not a void function, which we check by checking the return type of the function. So this thing, the function type, return type is not equal to globals type def void, and this function flag is not set. We have reached the end of a non-void function, but there was no return. Report a warning. Okay. And yeah, so here we want to return the value. Here we want to report a warning that the scope does not return, even though the return type is not void. So report warning takes the context, the warning type, which we have to make up. So I think warning type, we start with warning and then there's just some stuff. So let's do warning. Maybe missing return value. Something like that. The token, which is, I think we want the scope token, I assume. So such that it points to the starting curly, which I think is what this is going to be, but we will verify that. Maybe would want the end. Do we have that? I guess we could just take the last token in the token array, which should be the ending curly. So that would be get current token for error report. Which get current token for error report is just a function that either gets the current token if there is one, or gets the last token if we are too far, or the first token if we are too far back, which I don't think can really happen anymore, but okay. So, okay, report warning, context, warning, type, the token, and a format string. Function must return a value, let's say. Function of type send_s must return a value. And let's get the type string. Push type string. Type string, before I forget to fill this in, dot size type string dot data. Let's say return type string. This takes an arena and then the scratch, so we pass the context arena, context scratch, I think context scratch is by value and context arena is not by value for some reason. Yeah, context arena, context scratch, and then the type. Struct string return type string. Okay. Now, okay. Intrinsic function is not declared. Yeah. Let's just assume that doesn't matter. So I'm using a different version of MSVC here than I'm usually using. Maybe I should just, let's try to include intrin.h and see if that's causes any problems. Doesn't solve it. Okay. Anyway, let's assume these are warnings and don't matter. Okay. And now this should complain if I try to compile this. It doesn't. Why not? This was very just. Return type string, let's say, here. The return type is not void. And the flags, the function returns a value which we set literally nowhere but just here. Should complain. So, okay. Let's set a breakpoint. Debug break. Thank you. And then debug this. Remedy bg for getting to return a value, and I'm also going to pass a test parameter which tells it not to use pre-main, not to use the intrinsic functions, compilation units like the implicit ones here, and tells it that the entry point is main. So, unable to debug process, unknown reason. What? Oh, it doesn't have. Okay, yeah. It's trying to use debug the C file because I forgot hlc.exe. Okay. Exit code 0. Never get here? Okay, where are we? Where's our worker pass function? Oh, is it not compiling? No, it says exit code 0. $14.05, that's right now. Okay. So let's search for any returns. These are errors. This is asleep. This is an error. It's an error. Here we are. Oh, fuck. No, this time it worked. I don't know what that was. Anyway. And as you can see, I also finally remembered to put the font size higher than in the other videos. Anyway, we are here. Our function identifier data is the correct one. Function forgets to return a value. So what is the function type? Return type. It's some sort of pointer type. So the first one shouldn't be true. And then I guess I'd care about the scope flags. Okay. Scope. Scope is function scope. Okay. Oh, do I have to enable it or something? Here. The get current token for error report. Just if it's too far, returns the last one. As you can see. Okay, and then return warning, should exit statement, no, should sleep, no. Warning enabled, it's probably important. Which the warning is not enabled, I have to put it in here. Okay. Why can't I find that? Where were we? In diagnostic.c. Doesn't like this apparently. Something to debug in my editor. Nice. Warning. Return. Missing return value is 1. Okay, now warning at this end curly. Function of type insta must return a value. Very nice. Now, the problem obviously is if I return 0, it still complains. So let's fix that. And that is done by setting this flag on the scope whenever we find a return. So in pass statement, when we find the return, token return, we have to now set this flag on the scope. So context, current scope, flags, or equals scope returns the value, scope flags returns a value. Right. Now this shouldn't complain anymore. Very nice. So let's maybe make those two tests for now. So in forgetting to return a value, let's do, remember that what this was called, what this value was, this warning was reporting. We are saying function of type must return a value. So check must return a value. And I think this should be doable in the test runner. So test runner forgetting to return a value. Yes, 1 test ran, 0 test failed. So let's move that. So this is a compile test because we're only testing that this compiles. Command move forgetting to return a value into tests. Compile. One file moved. Let's see that all the tests still pass, which might not be true because some tests complain about any warning. And so if the warning fails because because currently we only have if a top level return exists, we don't complain a warning. Otherwise we report a warning. Okay, and we hit the annoying thing that sometimes happens where it takes 35 seconds instead of whatever this is, 5 or so. Actually, it's pretty common on this computer. Maybe I should debug it on here. Anyway, not that important. So, check must return a value. So we don't have this file anymore, so let's kill it and make a new one, which is just complaints about, let's do one subscope for now. Returns a value in a subscope. Let's see. So how this would work is int main again, then int function, let's say, or int returns a value in a subscope. Then we make a scope and say return 0. And so this should now complain because we're currently only checking for returns at top level in the function. So let's see that that's true. So returns a value in a subscope. Let's see. You can see warning at this function of type int must return a value. Let's put the type in single quotes because I usually do that. So must return a value. Okay. What happened? I pressed the wrong button. So, which just means we need to propagate this flag when we hit a subscope. The way we hit a subscope is here in open curly. And so here it pushes a new scope, which has no flags. And then it passes an imperative scope, and then it pops that scope. And so all we need to do after we popped it, we say context, if I can spell, current and scope flags is or equal to the scope flags and the flag we care about. So scope flags returns a value. So, and it doesn't complain anymore. So let's make this one a test. So returns a value in the subscope. And so this shouldn't complain, so we say reject. Just say warning. Should not produce a warning, because this is a beautiful little C program. Let's also call the function just in case this will ever not be checked because of function calling or something. But I think I would always want to report this warning. So it doesn't matter really. But anyway, see that still works. And test runner on returns a value in the subscope. 1 test ran, 0 test failed. Okay. CMD, move. So I'm using CMD every time here because my editor doesn't have the move command implemented. Okay. Returns a value in a subscope to tests, compile. Okay. Let's maybe also check that that's there. So tests, compile, returns a value in the subscope, yeah. And then kill it here. Okay. Now, think from here on out. I'm not gonna make a test case for every single one, but just going to go through all the statements and check that the returns a value flag is set correctly. Pass statement. And maybe we are going to get into some more complicated cases, but for now, let's not. Okay, for ifs. We have an asked if we pass a condition, conditions cannot return. For now, there is no return functions, but I'm only going to care about no return functions if they are at statement level. So we pass an if, or we get the if token, we push one of those asked if nodes, we expect an open paren, we pass a condition, we maybe report if there's an assignment in that condition, we maybe load it, okay. We expect the end paren for the if, and then we have a statement, and we have possibly an else. So we only need to care about the returns a value flag if the if has both an if statement and an else statement, because otherwise we are always in the case where it could return a value. I guess there could be a constant condition, but maybe I don't care about that for now. Okay, and so here in the case where there's an else, I'm going to say if asked if is a statement kind is either asked return, which means that it's one of the, like, maybe make a new one, asked if returns a value. Okay, let's also make this a test. Int function in main, and then return function And so here we have if one, like if, say, int param, then we have param return 1, 0. This is the statement of the if is a return statement case, which is this. And the other one, so else return 1. This should work and not complain. And then the other thing that should not complain is also these are scopes. Warning. So okay, if the statement is a return or the statement is a scope, then, and okay, let's make a function for this. So statement returns a value, let's say. So we're going to do int, or like I think b32 is the convention in this code base. Statement and returns a value. And this is asked, and we return if it's a return. So if asked kind is asked return, then obviously. Otherwise, if it's a scope, then we're gonna cast it out. So asked scope is asked. Then turn scope flags and scope flag returns a value is not equal to 0. And so here in this case, I don't have to do it manually anymore. I can say if statement returns a value, asked if statement, and also the else statement returns a value. Asked if, wait, I copied this. Then we know that this block now returns a value. So context, current scope, flags is all equal to the scope flag returns a value. Very nice. Now, for loops. Think for loops for now. Don't alter this value because they should only alter this value if it's an infinite loop, and for now I'm going to ignore the case where there are infinite loops, but So we put this onto the to-do. Do I have to do? No. It's apparently not in the Git. I guess that makes sense. Okay. So let's make a cleanup. It's maybe better anyway. Yeah, about this thing for infinite loops. And so here what we would have to do is if it's an infinite loop, assume that it doesn't return a value unless there somewhere in the function in the loop is a break statement. Okay. Same goes for while. Same goes for do while. Now break statement at cleanup if care about infinite loops. This needs to needs to reset I don't have it in copy and paste anymore, this value here. On the not the current scope, but rather the scope we can break. Or like the scope one up maybe. Scope parent. Okay. Continues don't matter for the purpose of this thing. Then switch statements are a little bit weird, but I'm just going to say that they return a value if their statement returns a value. So where did I do this in the for? Like this. If the asked switch oh, there is a scope. So if the scope, right, because we need to insert a scope so we can break. Okay, so if scope flags and this guy, then we need to set it also on the current scope. Now for case statements, we actually would want to reset this flag. For case statements and labels, we assume we can jump there from anywhere, so we reset the flag. This is not technically correct in some cases, but it's an over approximation, so we have more cases, I guess no pun intended, where it returns this warning even though it shouldn't. But I think I'm gonna do case current scope flags doesn't return a value anymore. And equals not we assume we can jump here arbitrarily, so the containing scope not return a value anymore. Actually, for case statements, this is kind of weird. This version of doing it probably doesn't work that well, but it's fine. We just see what are the errors in the end, and hopefully there are just less, because we do stuff like this, less warnings, and then it's fine. Okay. Same for the default statement. Then an else is just an error. Okay. Return, we already set the thing. Open curly, we already handled. A goto. I guess I'm not sure about a goto. Because there shouldn't be anything after a goto. That's unreachable. So if you have a goto in the end of a function, it's probably fine. Sure, let's just say check this. I'm just going to say sure. If there's a goto, we return a value. Now, an identifier is kind of interesting. First of all, there's a label case, in which case that's the same as a case statement in some sense, I think. Where we say we don't return a value anymore. So I'll put this here. And then there is the normal declaration case, which is either, or the normal case, which is either a declaration, in which case I don't think I care about returning a value, but if it is an expression case, I think I do, because there could be no return functions, and I want to detect that. So I'm going to say if red kind is asked function call, then asked function call is a thing, okay. Red. So if call sure. Right, we have the function call, and we only care about if the function call is calling an identifier for now. So if call identifier expression, which apparently is a garbage name according to me, kind is asked identifier, Then we have asked identifier, which finally gives us a declaration. And so we can check if ident deckel I guess it must be a function of type function, I'm pretty sure. But let's check where no return. Do we have that? Pretty sure we do. Function type. Is it in function type? No. Function declaration declaration kind flags declaration. Maybe none of these. No return, no return. Oh, it's like this. I see. No, so no return. Token no return. No return. Specifier no return. But these are specifiers for now. So I don't know if I actually care about this anywhere. I set it here. Then probably when I push the function, I don't have this. You should not be allowed for functions. Should only be allowed for functions. Yeah. So I probably don't care about this right now at all. Okay, let's make a declaration flag. Is no return. So we can just check here the deckel flags and declaration is no return. Then the scope returns a value. Okay. I guess I have to look at the C-spec if no return is actually a declaration specifier thing or supposed to be on the type, because maybe it's supposed to be on the type, which would make this a little bit easier, I guess. But okay, we also need to fill this in. So in parse declarator probably. This guy. Here we, no, not parse declarator, parse declaration list. Parse declaration list. We parse a declarator, right? Which a declarator is just like the whole function type and the identifier, and not just the type specifier. Anyway, read the C-spec if you can. And so, yeah, here we are in the case where the type of the declarator is a function type. So then here we can care about this flag. So if specifiers specifier flags is specifier no return, then the function asDecl flags say it's a no return function. Okay. Fine, that should fix that. And maybe I'll also do the warning or the error if it's a declaration and not a function. Cannot define the declaration. I think this is if it's not local. No. It should have been the extern push declaration for declarator. So somewhere here we should check that. So if the specifiers tell us it's no return, but shouldn't there be like inline? I did this for inline. Here, something similar to this. So no return. Data declarations cannot be marked. No return. I think the correct way to spell it is no return. Like this. Okay. Anyway, that was a little bit much of a side quest. So this should now work, and I will try to make a test case for it. But let's ignore that for now and not make the test case right now, but instead move on to the other statements. So if there's one of these types, then it's probably a declaration. We don't care about declarations for returning a value. If it's an ASM block, I'm not going to care for now. If it's a static assert, I'm not going to care for now. If it's default, it's a pass expression, which is a pass expression which does not have an identifier first. Because we handled that case above, in which case I don't think I'm going to care. And the last thing is token invalid. So I think we are done. In which case I am going to do this right now. No return function must not return a value. No, it's not that a no return function must not return a value, but rather function calling. Function containing, sure, no return call. Function containing no return call must not return a value. Int main int function. And then we also need a no return. And do I have fast fail? I feel like that's something that exists, but okay. Oh, I don't have the file loaded. Intrinsic, implicit, intrinsic.c. This has a fast fail, which is currently marked inline asm. Okay. I am, but not marked no return. Yeah, because it's inline. Maybe it should be marked no return anyway. I think this should work. Okay. So this should not complain. It does though. Did I compile the compiler? No, I didn't. Which tested both things. That's nice. Okay. All right, very good. So this file also needs the reject warning, and then remove it again. Move function containing no return call must return a value to tests compile. One file moved, that's it. Okay. So let's make sure all the tests are run. So test runner. That was one fail. Test Unicode string ledger. It really takes a long time here. Yeah, I need to debug that. On my other machine, it doesn't take this long. Not really sure why. I don't think it has anything to do with the compiler being slow, but rather that the test runner kind of sucks in the way it's doing stuff. Oh, it's this new one, exited with code 1. What's your problem? Right, and this is this file. Oh, it doesn't know because it has the minus test, it doesn't have the intrinsic file. So let's get this. First off, close this because we removed it, and then intrinsic, copy this, open this file, and put the fast fail here. Now it should work. Okay. So now the way to test that this is not too annoying, because now all the tests should pass. It was the only one that didn't pass. I want to compile some real code to see that this is not overly aggressive, and I'm going to just compile the compiler itself. It's like one of the bigger projects that I have. And the way we do that usually in config.pve, I have a command for it. Yeah, hlc main.c, and here I enable all warnings, which is too aggressive for what I'm trying to do right now. So I'm just going to ignore this and say, and copy this command and see how much it complains about. Still complains about a bunch of stuff, which some of those are not really that interesting. First off, we can see like the format string stuff, needs some work to not complain about all of these minor issues. But here we have some of these function type, function of type blah must return a value. One issue we can see, I put a new line. These implicitly have a new line and shouldn't have an explicit new line. First thing to fix. Oh, you can't see this, but I'm removing the new line. Okay. Now, this function right here must return a value. So invalid code path does a do assert. Do assert is marked no return, which may or may not defined. Should be defined as no return. Oh, but it's a parenthesized statement. Right, it has parens. So maybe I do care about the case where parse, I have this check right here. And I kind of want to do the same thing in the case where it's just a normal expression. So do I copy? Do I make a function? Always the difficult part. Let's, I guess, make this a function. Maybe one on call to no return. No. Maybe set returns a value. Maybe set current scope returns a value on call to no return function. Sure, that seems fine. Lysel name. This takes the context. And then the AST we are trying to check for. The AST node struct IST. And here it was called ret, which maybe I'm going to call just expression. This takes the context and then ret. That compiled. So we can rerun this. Ret undeclared identifier. I guess this didn't compile before. Only thought it compiled. That's a bit annoying to see with all the warnings. Okay. So this builds again, and we have less function must return a value. We only have one left in preprocess.c, this guy right here, which is a while true loop, which never breaks, which is one of the false positives I think I'm willing to live with for now. And so, yeah, I think we successfully implemented this feature. I guess one thing to test is that it would have caught the bug that we struggled with yesterday. And so I'm gonna check out that that's true. So going back into the linker and then doing add font size 36. The function that I was trying to implement is like AR lookup symbol, and here the return node was missing. So let's see that that now complains, and it doesn't. Well, that's great. So why not? I guess we're not done yet. What's the build command? Just HLC linker. Okay. Remedy bg hlc.exe linker .c, but we also need the full path. So let's just say // headerless C compiler. And so where did we put that option, and which function do we care about? Let's go into parse function, worker parse function. That is what I care about. And then parse imperative scope would be the next thing. Okay. So I think I have context, current function, identifier, the data. Come on. This is not the one I care about. Okay, there's a lot. So let's put one of those data breakpoints as I usually do them. If string match of function context current function, which is just function, so identifier string is string. Now, which one do we care about? We care about AR lookup symbol. Right, I forgot the debug break. So we have scope flags. Currently it's only a function scope. And now, because it doesn't complain, it means in the end the returns a value flag is set. So I can just put a data breakpoint on this. So break when value changes. So apparently there is a top level return, it thinks. Oh, I see. It's one of these. Because this return statement, the current scope for it is still the scope of this guy. Okay, how to handle this? Could just put in a hack for now, where we detect in the if statement case if there isn't an else, but it has this return. I guess that's what I'm going to do. Or yeah, I don't know if how I can do anything else. Parse statement. So what I care about is I have an if statement and there isn't an else. Then I'm just going to say if, okay, let's do it like this, if the asked if statement kind is asked return, then remove that flag. Let's say add hack if the return of this the return is contained in the current scope but the if means and actually it's also the case where either the else or the if is just a return thing, but I think I'm gonna leave those as false positives or false negatives. The return in the current scope, the return is contained in the current scope, but the if means that it is only conditionally executed. Okay. So this should fix it. There might be a better way to do this by lazily doing the return thing, but I'm just gonna leave it as is. Okay, let's see that now this returns a warning. So let's kill this, HLC linker.c. Warning, function of type DLL import node must return a value. Very nice, that works. Now, one last thing, how many false positives have been introduced when compiling the compiler? Not a single one more than this one right here. Okay, so that's it. This is working nicely now. Yeah. Thank you for watching, and if you have enjoyed it, maybe see you again.